Next is chapter 12, The Fellow of Delicacy. So, the Fellow of Delicacy is an ironic name because I don't think Mr. Stryver is delicate at all. But Mr. Stryver has made up his mind that he is going to bestow himself on the doctor's daughter. So this is so funny how he sees himself. He's resolved to make her happiness known to her before he left town for the long vacation. This way, then, they could arrange at their leisure when they would actually have their wedding. So he just assumes that she's going to want him and that he's giving a gift by offering himself. So as he decides he's going to get right over there and have a formal proposal to take Miss Manette to Vauxhall Gardens. Well, this was interesting here. It doesn't go into the details, but it does make it clear that he tries to connect with her. He was going to propose to take her to Vauxhall Gardens, that failing to Ranelagh, that unaccountably failing too. So obviously he must have invited her and she said no. It behooved him to present himself in Soho and there declare his noble mind. So he's just going to march right over to Dr. Manette's house. So on his way to do that, he passes Tellson's bank. And it says here he has his banking accounts at Tellson's. He obviously knows Mr. Lorry because he had been at the trial, and he knows that Mr. Lorry is a close friend of the Manettes. And so he decides to go into the bank and tell Mr. Lorry the brightness of the Soho horizon, meaning his exciting news that he is going to marry Lucie. It describes how Mr. Stryver comes into the bank. And remember, the bank is dingy and dark, and he's this big, blustery man, and it says that he always seems too big for any place or space. He's much too big for Tellson's, to the point where the old clerks are uncomfortable with him in the little lobby. Mr. Lorry, who's just the opposite in character, he's very discreet. He has a sample tone of voice that he would recommend under circumstances, and he says, "How do you do, Mr. Stryver? How do you do, sir?" So he counters Mr. Stryver's brash sort of behavior with a very proper greeting. And he says, "Is there anything I can do for you?" Recognizing him as a bank customer. And Mr. Stryver says, "Oh no, this is a private visit to you, Mr. Lorry. I've come for a private word." "Oh, indeed," said Mr. Lorry, bending down his ear. And Mr. Stryver says, "I am going to make an offer of myself in marriage to your agreeable little friend, Miss Manette." "Oh, dear me," cried Mr. Lorry. This would be my reaction too. And of course, Stryver he's surprised at that response. "What may be your meaning, Mr. Lorry?" "My meaning?" And then he has a hard time putting it into words, and he finally blurts out, "There really is too much of you. You're not appealing. You're kind of gross and obnoxious." "Well," says Mr. Stryver, "if I understand you, Mr. Lorry, I'll be hanged." So he's saying, if I understand you, you're telling me I'm not going to succeed. And he says, "Am I not eligible?" And Mr. Lorry says, "Oh, you're eligible." And Mr. Stryver says, "Am I not prosperous?" "Yes," Mr. Lorry says, "you're prosperous and advancing." Nobody could doubt that. So, of course, how awkward it is. He's not going to just say, you're unappealing and nobody likes you. So Mr. Lorry says, "Were you going to go there now?" And Mr. Stryver says, straight, "Yes, of course I'm going there now." And Mr. Lorry says, "Then I wouldn't if I were you." It's oh my. "Because," says Mr. Lorry, "I wouldn't go on such an object without having some cause to believe that I should succeed." So he's trying to say, you shouldn't just assume that she's going to want to marry you. You should have some sense already that she likes you, which of course he doesn't. "Damn me," cried Stryver, "but this beats everything." I'm curious if in your book you don't have this abbreviated like this. I'm wondering if this is a version that's been, made child-friendly or something. I'm not sure. Anyway, Mr. Stryver's you're a man of business. You have experience in a bank. Like you just agreed with the 3 reasons why I should be successful because I'm prosperous and I'm advancing and I'm eligible. And yet you're still telling me that maybe Miss Lucie would not be interested in me, which of course that's the case. And Mr. Lorry gets angry with him and she said, the young lady goes before all. Like you should know whether or not she likes you before you would offer yourself to her. Then you mean to tell me, Mr. Lorry, that it is your deliberate opinion that the young lady at present in question is a mincing fool? So he immediately gets defensive and criticizes Lucie and says, well, if she's uninterested in me, then there's something wrong with her. And Mr. Lorry gets very angry and he says, I will hear no disrespectful word of that young lady. And he goes on to really scold him for that kind of comment, which makes everything very much more awkward for Mr. Stryver, whose blood vessels now are in a dangerous state because he's so mad. So he says, yes, that is what I mean to tell you. Make no mistake about it. Mr. Lorry is like, you are not going to succeed. So they continue to banter about this again. This is becoming a theme with Mr. Stryver. He likes to banter with people. And down here at the bottom, finally, Mr. Lorry says, it might be painful to you to find yourself mistaken. It might be painful to Dr. Manette to have the task of being explicit with you. It might be very painful to Miss Manette to have the task of being explicit with you. You know the terms upon which I have the honor and happiness to stand with the family. So he's saying, like, Mr. Lorry saying, why put Dr. Manette and Miss Lucie in a position of telling you no? That's going to be so awkward for them. Mr. Lorry knows them so well. He says that he will go and ask for Stryver and find out if Lucie is interested in him, which is a wonderful suggestion. So Mr. Stryver agrees. He says, okay, well, like, how long do I have to wait? And Mr. Lorry said, oh, just a few hours. I'm going to go this evening, and I will let you know after I've spoken with them. And Stryver says, oh, okay, I won't go there. I'll wait to hear from you. So thank goodness that's what happens. And it does say that Mr. Lorry does come back and tell Mr. Stryver that he has been to Soho and that he has no doubt that he was right in the conversation, that Lucie has no interest at all in Mr. Stryver. What's funny here is the way Mr. Stryver tries to save face. Of course, he's very humiliated. And so he goes on to say, oh, it's no big deal. I've decided it really doesn't matter. She's a foolish woman. Young women have committed similar follies. I'm sorry that I even thought about it. I realize now that, it's not really, she's not the right person for me, and he doesn't really care. So all of this is basically him trying to say that, you cannot control the mincing vanities and giddiness of empty-headed girls. So he's like, she's just too young. She doesn't know what she wants. And I've decided, I could do better. That's basically what Mr. Stryver says. And thank goodness, that's all Mr. Lorry wants. Mr. Lorry doesn't care. I mean, at this point, of course, Mr. Stryver is criticizing Lucie again, but Mr. Lorry doesn't care because he has the peace of mind that there's no way Mr. Stryver is going to try and marry her. The next chapter is The Fellow of No Delicacy. So this is about Sydney Carton. So Sydney Carton, of course, is the other man who's been hanging around Dr. Manette's office. And it says here, if Sydney Carton ever shone anywhere, he certainly never shone in the house of Dr. Manette. He had been there often during a whole year and had always been the same moody and morose lounger there. When he cared to talk, he talked well, but the cloud of caring for nothing, which overshadowed him with such a fatal darkness, was very rarely pierced by the sun within him, or the light within him. So he's been visiting, as we know, for over a year, and he's just kind of he's a downer, a complete downer. Many a night he had vaguely and unhappily wandered there when wine had brought no transitory gladness to him. Many a dreary daybreak revealed his solitary figure lingering there. This is outside Dr. Manette's house, and still lingering there when the first beams of sun brought into strong relief removed beauties of architecture and spires of churches and lofty buildings, as perhaps the quiet time brought some sense of better things, else forgotten and unattainable, into his mind. Of late, the neglected bed in the temple court had known him more scantily than ever, and often when he had thrown himself upon it, no longer than a few minutes, he had got up again and haunted that neighborhood. So he's not sleeping. You know, we know Sydney Carton works through the night for Mr. Stryver, and he goes home in the morning and goes to sleep. But it's saying here that he's not sleeping, and that instead he's kind of lingering around Soho near Dr. Manette's house. So I wrote here, he's kind of a stalker a little bit. You know, I mean, I don't think he's dangerous, but he's a little obsessed for sure. So on a day in August when Mr. Stryver had carried his delicacy into Devonshire, and when the sight of scent and flowers in the city streets had some waves of goodness in them for the worst, of health or for the sickliest, and youth for the oldest, Sydney's feet still trod those stones. From being irresolute and purposeless, his feet became animated by an intention. So Mr. Stryver is away on vacation, and suddenly Sydney is going over to their house with a little bit more intention. So he goes one day when he knows that Dr. Manette is not at home. He's shown upstairs and sees Lucie working alone. And it says here that Lucie had never quite been comfortable around him. And she's a little uncomfortable as he sits and talks to her. And she notices that he doesn't look good. And she says, "I fear you are not well, Mr. Carton." And he says, "Well, no, you know, the life I lead is not conducive to health. And the first thing Lucie says, as would anybody, is, "Well, you know, why don't you change your life? Why don't you make some better choices? You know, why not change it?" And then she notices that he's crying. So Sydney Carton is literally crying in front of Lucie. He puts his head down on the table and covers his eyes. She had never seen him soften, and she's very distressed. So of course she feels bad for him because she's compassionate, but I'm sure she's also a little uncomfortable. And Sydney says, "I break down before the knowledge of what I want to say to you. Will you hear me?" And she says, "Well, of course, I would be glad to hear you." And he says, "God bless you for your sweet compassion." This could be on a quote test. And then he says, "Don't be afraid to hear me. I am like one who died young. All my life might have been." And she says, "Oh, Mr. Carton, I'm sure the best part of it might still be," she's trying to give him some hope that he could still turn himself around and be a better person. And he says, "You know, I know better, although in the mystery of my own wretched heart, I know better. I shall never forget it. Like, I'm never going to be a better person." And this makes her pale and trembling. And he says, "If it has been possible, Miss Manette, that you could have returned the love of this man you see before yourself, flung away, wasted, drunken, poor creature of misuse, as you know him to be, he would have been conscious this day and hour, in spite of his happiness, that he would bring you to misery, bring you to sorrow and repentance, blight you, disgrace you, pull you down with him. I know very well that you can have no tenderness for me. I ask for none. I am even thankful that it cannot be." So he's admitting here a little bit that he loves her, but he has no desire for her to return that love because he knows he would disappoint her. And this is an important line. She says, "Without it, can I not save you, Mr. Carton? Can I not recall you?" Remember, recall to life. You know, he's like a man buried. She's like, "Can I help you find a better course? You know, can I in no way repay your confidence? I know this is a confidence." So she's like, "I know you just told me that you love me." She's acknowledging that he said something very vulnerable. "I know you would say this to no one else." So she's very kind and obviously does not feel threatened by him. And he says, "No, if you will hear me through a very little more, all you can ever do for me is done." So he just wants to tell her how he feels. "I wish you to know that you have been the last dream of my soul." I think this is a very important quote. In my degradation, I have not been so degraded, but that the sight of you with your father and of this home made such a home by you has stirred old shadows that I thought had died out in me. Since I knew you, I have been troubled by a remorse that I thought would never reproach me again, and have heard whispers from old voices impelling me upward that I thought were silent forever. So he's saying that being with her, he has had moments where he thinks about, could he do something better? Maybe he shouldn't be so lazy and so drunk. He says, I have unformed ideas of striving afresh, beginning anew, shaking off sloth and sensuality, and fighting out the abandoned fight. A dream, all a dream, that ends in nothing and leaves the sleeper where he lay down. But I wish you to know that you inspired it. So he doesn't have any belief that he could actually follow through on his dreams of a better life, but he wants her to know that by being with her, he has been inspired to at least think about a better future. And she's like, oh, try again. You could try to be better. And he says, no. He knows it's not possible. But he says, I wish you to know with what a sudden mastery you kindled me, heap of ashes, that I am into fire. A fire, however, inseparable in its nature from myself, quickening nothing, lighting nothing, doing no service, idly burning away. So he just wants her to know that he is moved by her. And she says, since it is my misfortune, Mr. Carton, to have made you more unhappy that you were before you knew me. I mean, now she feels sort of bad. Like, well, it sounds like things are even worse because it seems like it would be worse to have hope and then decide you can't act on it. And Sydney says, don't say that, for you would have reclaimed me if anything could. You will not be the cause of my becoming worse. Okay. So she says, since the state of your mind that you describe is at all events attributable to some influence of mine, this is what I mean. If I can make it plain, can I use no influence to serve you? Have I no power for good with you at all? She's like, if I inspired you, can't I help you a little bit? And he says, the utmost good that I am capable of now, Miss Minette, I have come here to realize. So he's coming to tell her what good he thinks he can do. He says, let me carry through the rest of my misdirected life the remembrance that I opened my heart to you, last of all the world, and that there was something left in me at this time which you could deplore and pity. So he feels good enough by just having told her that he has feelings for her and that he's grateful to her because of her goodness. And she's like, she's still, can you imagine how confused she must be? Which I entreated you to believe again and again, most fervently with all my heart, was capable of better things, Mr. Carton. He's like, entreat me to believe no more. I approve myself and I know better. I distress you. I draw fast to an end. So he can tell that, like, the fact that she can't help him is upsetting to her, which of course it would be. And he says, will you let me believe when I recall this day that the last confidence of my life was reposed in your pure and innocent breast, and that it lies there alone and will be shared by no one? So he asks, please don't tell anyone that I told you that I love you and that you have made a difference in my life. And she promises that she will not tell anyone. And she says, the secret is yours, not mine, and I promise to respect it. So he says, be under no apprehension of my ever resuming this conversation again. He's never going to bring it up. If I were dead, that could not be surer than it is henceforth. In the hour of my death, I shall hold sacred the one good remembrance and shall thank and bless you for it. So like on my deathbed, I'll remember this moment. And he was so unlike what he had ever shown himself to be. And it was so sad to think how much he had thrown away and how much he every day kept down and perverted that Lucie Minette wept. She's so upset by this conversation. And he said, be comforted. I'm not worth such feeling. An hour or two hence, and the low companions and low habits that I scorn but yield to will render me less worth such tears as those. So like, just give me a minute. You're going to see what a mess I am. You're not going to care about me. And he says, the last supplication, but one I make to you, is that you will believe this of me. So, I am this, I will always be towards you what I am now. So I'm always going to care about you. Just please, please know that. And then he has one final request. So he has two requests. One is not to tell anyone that he loves her. And the other is this: for you and for any dear to you, I would do anything, he says to her. If my career were of that better kind, that there was any opportunity or capacity of sacrifice in it, I would embrace any sacrifice for you and for those dear to you. Try to hold me in your mind at some quiet times as ardent and sincere in this one thing. The time will come, the time will not be long in coming, when new ties will be formed about you, ties that will bind you yet more tenderly and strongly to the home you so adorn, the dearest ties that will ever grace and gladden you. So he knows she's going to get married, probably to Charles Darnay. Oh, Miss Manette, when the little picture of a happy father's face looks up in yours, when you see your own bright beauty springing up anew in your feet, think now and then that there is a man who would give his life to keep a life you love beside you. So he just wants her to remember that there is a man himself who would do anything to make her happy or to keep her happy. And then he says, farewell and God bless you. So he asks, don't tell my secret, and no, I will do anything for your happiness. Those are the two things that Carton says to her, and then he leaves.